Hi everyone, John from LookSmart Home Inspections right here in New Jersey. And I want to talk to you guys today about trees and how trees affect a house, possibly, and how trees, affect home inspections and how home inspectors, usually deal with trees. Now, it's true that home inspectors here in New Jersey, we're not arborists. We're not doing an evaluation on trees and vegetation for health or anything like that. But what we are required to do is report on any potential problems with trees and vegetation that are going to negatively affect, the home. And I think that's very important because many times there are trees around the house that are negatively impacting the house in one way or the other. So it's really important that we look at trees and we just don't ignore them. We just don't walk past them. We take a sort of a macro view of the exterior of the house, and one of the things that we look at are the trees and how are the trees, impacting the home. And the first thing that we're going to look at is the location of the trees, right? A lot of times you'll find trees that are planted way too close to the exterior of a house, like 3, 4 feet. And that can really negatively impact the home in a lot of different ways. And the first way is branches overhanging the roof of the house. And that can be several issues with that, right? So the branches themselves, they can fall on the roof and cause damage, right? They can, as they're on the tree, they could be swaying in the wind, causing mechanical damage to the roof. As that those branches sway in the wind, they're going to rub off the protective granular material of the roof surface. Or if we have different types of roofing material, other damages, can take place. So that's one of the first things that we're going to look for. And home inspectors here in New Jersey are generally going to tell our client that, hey, you should really trim those trees back. We never really want to have overhanging branches over a roof. And the same is true for limbs. Like the limbs are basically bigger branches, for lack of a better word. So they can be really heavy and they can really cause damage if they come down in a storm. So it's super important that we alert our clients. And I know that this seems obvious, but a lot of times people are just not really paying attention to the outside of the house. Sometimes they didn't even walk around the outside of the home, and they're really focused on seeing their family inside the house. So it's really important that us as home inspectors here in New Jersey, we're looking at this for them. We're basically, their eyes, and they're, so we're telling them that these things are really important, even if they don't realize, that they are important. So that's very important. And so we don't really want to have a tree that's growing really close to the home. And so there's really no rule of thumb that says this tree is too close or that tree is not too close. So I kind of, give it the 10-foot rule, basically. That's not really a rule that's anywhere. That's kind of my own sort of judgment. And if it's a humongous tree, maybe 10 feet is not even enough room. But even at 10 feet, you can have negative effects on a home. And of course, branches overhanging, a limbs overhanging, those are also going to drop leaves and debris on the roof surface, which can trap and retain moisture, and that can, that can increase the aging of the roof prematurely, and we don't want that. Having trees over the home, leaves can fall and they can obviously affect the gutter system in the house. So when you have a lot of tree cover over a home, you have to maintain the gutters a lot more. And you maybe want to install a good set of, louver style gutter guards or gutter helmet style gutter guards, or, something like that. Try to stay away from those screen style gutter guards because they just get full of debris anyway. So over time. But anyway, that's not here nor there. It's not a gutter guard video. So you have to make sure also that your gutters are clean when we have a lot of tree cover, because the gutters are crucially important. We never want to have those gutters obstructed where the water is overflowing the gutters and our roof drainage system isn't working properly. And then we get a lot of water around the outside of the home, and then water on the outside of the home can lead to water inside the home, in the basement, in the crawl space. And so that's very, very negative. So be careful of these trees. They can do a lot of damage and in a lot of different ways. And another way that trees can cause damage is the root structure of these trees can also cause damage to the home's foundation. And this is, in my instance, my 25 years of doing home inspections, I rarely see this as a problem. And I don't really come across this often. Maybe just a few times, but it can, tree roots can impact negatively the foundation of the house if they're exerting pressure on the home. They can crack the foundation of the home. But what I found most cases, the tree roots are just simply growing around the foundation. They're impacting the foundation. The tree roots are impacting something solid, and they're saying, you know what, we can't go through here. Let's go this way or that way. So I'm not saying they can't negatively affect the foundation, causing damage or cracking. What I'm saying is I can't really tell you that I see that a lot, but it can happen, especially with older foundations, like older fieldstone foundations, older block foundations, but not really too much in a modern foundation. But that's something that also, kind of to be aware of. And so when we're looking at these trees, and it's difficult in the winter to kind of assess, the condition of the trees. Now, that's not really our job, but home inspectors here in New Jersey also are going to look at that tree if there's no leaves or vegetation growing on it and it's July or August, right? We don't want to have dead trees around the house, because a dead tree is a tree that can be very, very compromised over time. And if we have a lot of wind, that tree can possibly come down. So I definitely tell my client, if I see a tree that's rather looking suspect, a tree that's not really looking healthy, or I think it's a problem, I may have them, maybe get that tree evaluated by somebody who's really in the tree business. But, generally speaking, home inspectors would be able to tell you if the tree is dead or not. Like if it's July or August and you have no vegetation and the tree just looks super dry, generally speaking, that tree is probably going to be dead. And then we want to have that removed. We don't want that around, especially, if it's close to the house. And another thing we're going to be looking for is any trees that are leaning towards the home. And we see this a lot. And sometimes clients won't even know that the tree is leaning. They won't even, they weren't aware of that. So that's something that we have to tell our clients about. And I try to really do this, is because when we have a tree that's leaning towards the structure of the home, in my mind, that's more readily a problem where a windstorm, a hurricane, a lot of rain can weaken that tree, and that tree can come down, causing damage to the structure of the home, or worse, causing injury, right? So we surely don't want that. So we tell our clients, hey, this tree, make sure you're aware the tree's got a significant lean to the home. You should remove it. All right. I don't even mince words. It should be removed. I don't want trees leaning towards the house, even though I really like trees. I don't want to cut trees down just for no reason. But if there is a reason, for sure, they should, they without a doubt can come down. And another thing that we're looking at as home inspectors here in New Jersey is how the trees are affecting patios, walkways, and driveways, right? Because, these trees' roots can actually heave up sections of the walkway, sections of the driveway, sections of the patio, and that can create tripping hazards, especially for the front walkway or sidewalk area. We never want to see a front walkway or sidewalk area with heaved sections where, you have a couple inches of raised walkway, and then you have a significant safety issue for a pedestrian, somebody who's walking, down the walkway. And in most municipalities here in New Jersey that, you as an owner of a house own the walkway too. Now, that's not 100% all the time, but most of the time you're going to own the walkway, and in any liability problems, they're going to be yours. So one of the things that we are very conscious about as home inspectors is to point out any liability issues regarding, raised areas or sunken areas of walkways. And a lot of times these raised or sunken areas will have to do, that are caused by tree roots. And so that's something that's crucially important too, because we obviously never want to, get somebody hurt. And the next thing is very close and near and dear to me, is because I do shoreline inspections. Is that trees can really negatively impact the shoreline in ways that are bad. So tree roots, they wanna reach for that water. They're trying to get water. And what is an excellent source of water that's running right down the portion of your front yard into the city tap connection is a main sewer line or lateral, right? And some lines are more vulnerable than others. We find a lot of clay lines have problems with tree roots just because of the multiple sections of clay line that are attached. So clay comes in short sections, and the more transitions you have, the more vulnerable it is for tree roots to enter, those transitions. And so sometimes we see clay roots also in transitions with old cast iron piping. Not as much in PVC. PVC is less resistant. The Fernco used in PVC and the connections, they just tend to they keep those tree roots out a little bit more readily than the other ones. But if you have a lot of trees in the front of your property and you're having a home inspection, you might want to have just a sewer line inspection performed. It's a good idea just to see. As home inspectors, we can't access the sewer line unless we're specially trained to do so and we have the right equipment to do so. It's something that we cannot see during a home inspection unless we actually put a camera down the sewer line. And that's very, very important. So that's one of the things that I'm looking for too, is to make sure that the sewer line isn't potentially impacted by trees. And even if there's no trees around, I'll do a sewer line inspection and then we'll find tree roots, we'll find vegetation in the sewer line. It just happens, even if there's no trees around too. But you have more of a chance, obviously, if there's a lot of trees growing through the property, for sure. The next thing we want to talk about is pests and trees, right? So pests, when you have trees close to the house, you have vegetations close to the house, pests can actually use that as sort of a ladder system or ladder way to gain access to the home. Squirrels can get access, mice can get access. Things, they want to get warm in the winter. And so we're looking also for pest activity around a home, but we don't want to create conditions that are conducive to having pests access the roof or other areas of the home. And one of the ways we could do that is not having trees or vegetation growing close to or touching, the exterior of the house. So that's another thing we're going to report on. And I also are looking inside the home. I'm looking for any kind of pest or vermin infestations. That's important to me. I want to tell my client as best as I can that, if we do see, droppings or pest activity or nesting, activity in a home, that's very, very important. We're also looking for tree branches or limbs that are overhanging a chimney. The same or similar thing can happen with a chimney that happens with a roof. We can have mechanical damage on the chimney top, caused by the trees growing there, vegetation. Sometimes you go to a house, and the vegetation is just growing all over the place and on the chimney, and that can really cause damage to the mortar joints and cause other problems, as well as giving pests an access way, into the home. So that's for sure. You don't want that. The vegetation also at the chimney top, as it dries in the fall, can create an area, if that is a fireplace chimney, and we have embers escaping. But a lot of times that rain hat or that cap on top of the chimney is going to be missing. So we have, direct, embers are shooting out of the chimney, not all the time, but sometimes, and you don't want that to ignite the dead or dying leaves up on the over the chimney, right? That's very, very fire hazard. So we don't want we don't want trees, branches, and limbs over the roof, and we certainly don't want them over the chimney too. So that's another thing, we're certainly be looking for. And talking about vegetation kind of goes along the lines, with the trees, is that we don't want vegetation touching the home. I know ivy is something that people like. I don't particularly like it. I don't see the reason for it growing on a house. But if you have vegetation, or you're thinking about buying a home with a lot of vegetation around the home or on the house, that really should be removed, because you're opening up yourself to additional risk as far as moisture damage, siding damage, and pest activity. So if you guys are touring houses here in New Jersey, and I want you to be cognizant of kind of what to look out for trees and vegetation growing around the exterior of the home. This isn't a full description of what we're looking for, as far as, tree problems, or tree damages and vegetation, but it's just kind of gives you guys an overview of what a home inspector here in New Jersey is going to be looking for as far as trees and how they impact the house, and how vegetation can impact the home. So if you guys have any questions regarding trees or vegetation, or homes that you're looking at, or homes that you're thinking about buying, my name is John. I'm here from LookSmart Home Inspections right here in New Jersey. Been doing home inspections for 25 years for satisfied clients. We don't mess around. We tell you exactly how it is. So if I can tell you, if I can help you in any way, just reach out, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.